So welcome back, Wargamers, to my second episode of Player Interviews, where I interview different players of Hobbit SBG. Today I am interviewing the Wargameterrain designer and creator, Alex Wright, from Wrightwargameterrain. Here he is now.
Hello, King Bonsai. Thanks for having me.
So Alex, I'm wondering if you would be willing to tell me how you got started in this hobby, or wargaming in general, if you started with another system.
Good question. So, exactly. This is certainly a passionate hobby of mine. Playing the game and certainly the terrain, creating the environments and the landscapes that totally change the battlefield around the miniatures. I think it enhances the game for sure. As far as where it started, as a teenager, I played 4th edition 40K, and, friends come over, we set up these, makeshift battlefields, cardboard, and stacked books and blankets, and it was nothing pretty, but, it worked. And then as I got older, I built more, I wanted more detailed landscapes for the scenarios, for the battles. So I started getting into styrofoam, sculpting, painting, and it just progressed, and my skills developed over the years. It certainly took time, and there's so many neat techniques online and on YouTube. I've learned from other hobbyists and terrain artists along the way. So it's progressed from a hobby and now into a business. So I certainly enjoy what I do.
Yeah, so you kind of have the motto of always keep learning from everybody. You're never too good to stop learning.
Exactly. Like anything in life, you want to keep an open-minded, mentality, and there's always a different way to do the same thing, and sometimes it's a better way. And with terrain, I found the products where I can keep the material light but durable, and I use styrofoam for a lot of my sculpting, the landscapes. I pick up new things all the time. YouTube is a great resource, and just trying out different things.
So when you design a terrain piece, how much do you think about the playability / how much balance can work? Because in Hobbit SBG in particular, their terrain can easily swing the tide of battle. The siege rules and in the ways and the movement and charge rules that it affects are so game-changing that one piece of terrain can completely change the course of a battle. So when you're designing terrain, how do you think about the effects that will have in-game?
It's a good question. So, terrain makes the game. It completely changes the outcome of the game. Like a large hill, a forest, a building can be used for cover for an army. It can hide an objective. So it truly affects the game in many ways. And, playability is vital to when designing the terrain. Meaning all the bases, all these 25mm bases, 40mm, 60mm, need to be, stable on several different areas, including steps, rocky bluffs, ramparts and forests. So I always, when I design a table, factor in, how are bases going to fit on this, what bases cannot fit on this, and then basically, depending on the scenario too, for a board that I designed, is a specific area that I'm building. Is it going to be very condensed, like a jungle or forest? Is it going to be very open, like grassy plains? These are all factored into the design, and I typically sketch out the ideas of a project beforehand to figure out, is this going to work? Don't start building until you have a thorough plan.
So, does that mean that if you design 1 or 2 terrain pieces for someone versus designing an entire board or an entire set that could cover a board, does that mean your thought process is different?
Definitely. If I were to design, say, a couple modular pieces versus an entire 6x4 foot table, the concepts and ideas that went into it would be much different. So, for example, 1 or 2 pieces. Someone may want a mountain in the center of the board for like a scenario such as hold ground. It can be steeper. It may not fit as many miniatures versus like a 6x4 foot. there may be several spread out rocky outcrops that are a little more maneuverable around. But to answer your question, it would be different. There's a lot more area to think about on a 6x4 foot versus just a couple pieces.
Are there any terrain projects you've been particularly proud of or hold particularly fond memories throughout your period of creating terrain for people?
Oh, definitely. There's definitely a few that I remember. One of them is the Starship destroyer for Nova. I mean, it's an 11-foot long, Darth Vader's starship made out of foam boards. So, you kind of you don't forget about projects like that. And, other iconic scenes from movies, building Edoras, the Rohan Kingdom, designing Linc Town, like a ruined Linc Town board for the DCHL. There's so many cool things and places that I get to create, and it's just a lot of fun playing on that as well, because it really brings the stories and movies to life while playing the miniature game.
It really does. It really does. It makes it just, you really get transported to Middle-earth with these models that you've spent a lot of time on in this terrain. It really does make these battles in Middle-earth.
Yep, exactly. It's like I said, terrain makes the game. It enhances the environment that your miniatures are in. I played on the mat. I played on, a blanket with a book stack for a mountain. It's not the same as playing on, a fully developed, forest or ruins of Osgiliath, so to speak. So it certainly changes the game.
Yeah, I can definitely confirm that playing on old miniature boxes is not as much fun as playing on terrain that is created and built with full detail and flocking and everything.
Yeah, exactly. It changes the entire look and feel. One thing, too, is storage. I mean, terrain can take up so much space. So one thing I've been focusing on lately is stackable terrain tiles, modular setups where you can stack the baseboard into one little pile, and then you can have all the modular pieces on top. So not only does that fit in a closet space better, it allows you to change the setup of the modular terrain for different scenarios. So a lot of my customers like that versatility, and they like the idea of putting it away so that their dining room table isn't, a battlefield for the rest of the year.
Yes, I quite agree with that. I prefer being able to put the terrain, and definitely appreciate your ability to put terrain in places that they're not constantly out, because that would take up a lot of more space.
For sure, definitely.
So yeah, thank you for coming on, Alex, and I definitely hope to be able to talk to you again.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
You too.